Princess Ayel swore never to love on the day she turned 21. Beneath black glass vault, she stood in white ceremonial armor, slid the obsidian oath ring onto her finger, and promised before the court that no heart would ever rule her judgment. No desire would ever bend a throne. No tenderness would ever become a weakness an enemy could use. The chamber praised her, because on Sereth, love was danger. Royal women who loved unwisely had broken alliances and started succession feuds. So Ayel built herself into the opposite of every cautionary tale: severe, untouchable. And for 6 years she kept that vow so perfectly that nobles stopped trying to charm her. Then the Terran ship Meridian arrived to repair the failing planetary shield, and one human with scarred hands and gray eyes stepped into her world. He did not look like Destiny. That was how he got past her defenses. Commander Julian Cross met her on the upper lattice where shield conduits glowed over the palace docks. He was broad-shouldered, dark-haired, wearing a work uniform stained by actual labor. And when Ayel demanded a status report in front of ministers and guards, he glanced at the jammed power line, then at the officials slowing his team down, and said, "If they move away from the controls, Your Highness, I can fix it before sunset." The ministers nearly choked. Ayel felt insult flash hot through her, but before she could answer, a maintenance boy slipped on the sparking catwalk. The rail gave way, and Julian moved before anyone else had fully gasped. He caught the child, slammed his own arm against a live conduit to keep them both from falling, dragged him back up, and went right back to work with half his glove burned away. There was no performance in it, only action. And that unsettled Ayel far more than flattery ever could. She returned the next day, pretending to inspect progress, then the next. Julian treated servants with the same respect he gave admirals, spoke truth no matter who disliked it, and once stepped between a noble overseer and a trembling apprentice with a voice so cold even the guards held still. "Rank does not make cruelty elegant," he said. And Ayel, watching from the gantry, hated the strange pressure in her chest, because it was not admiration anymore. It was the first fracture in a vow she had worn like armor. Some vows do not shatter all at once. They split quietly, until one day light gets in. The court noticed her interest before she admitted it, and House Valor moved quickly. Because Ayel's political match to Lord Cassian was supposed to secure fleets and votes. Cassian was handsome, polished, and hollow in all the places courage should have lived. All endured him until the Ascension Feast. When a reactor flare ignited the lower music hall and panic ripped through the palace, guests stampeded for exits. And servants were left trapped beneath a fallen light arch while nobles shouted for guards. Cassian backed away from the flames to save his own skin. Julian ran into them without waiting for orders, hauling out one servant, then another, then going back for a child no one else would reach. Ayel followed him into the heat before thought could stop her. And when they emerged, coughing into the cold night, with soot across their faces, she looked at the human and knew the oath was already dying. She tried to avoid him after that, but Julian made resistance impossible by never chasing her. He did not flatter, did not turn her conflict into a game. He simply kept being brave in a human way, and then came the betrayal. House Valar sabotaged the repaired shield array, just as a meteor storm entered the system. If the lattice failed, the capital dome would rupture and millions below would die. Ayel uncovered the plot and raced for the crown tower, only to find Cassian and his guards already at the override chamber, ready to seal the palace sector and let the lower districts burn. "The Empire needs order," Cassian told her, calm as ice. Not sentiment? And in that moment, Ayel finally understood what her oath had protected. Not strength, but the ability to stay untouched while other people paid the price. That was the hour she learned a cold heart and a strong heart were not the same thing before Cassian could lock her out. The tower door blew inward and a shower of sparks and Terrans charged through in scorched repair rigs. Wielding cutters and magnetic tools like weapons, Julian at the front, bleeding already. Furious enough to make nobles stumble back, the fight was brutal and desperate. Alarms howling while meteors hammered the sky outside. Julian broke through to Ayel, shoved the master key into her hand, and took a strike across the ribs meant for her. "Go," he snapped. Ayel ran to the core, keyed the override manually, and held the command while the city shook beneath impacts. Segment by segment, the shield reignited until the dome sealed hole and the world below survived. When she returned, Cassian was on his knees, House Valor's treason recorded, and Julian was sitting against the wall trying not to bleed on the floor. The queen arrived with ministers and guards, all waiting for Ayel to prove she was still the untouchable heir they admired. But she looked at the human who had crossed stars to save strangers, defied cruelty, and bled for people who could offer him nothing. And she understood at last that love was not the enemy of duty. Lovelessness was. So before the full court of Sereth, Princess Ayel removed the obsidian ring and let it fall to the metal floor. The sound was small, yet it shattered a century. "I swore never to love," she said, "because I was taught love makes rulers weak. But weak men were willing to let millions burn. Weak men called indifference discipline. Weak men mistook fear for control." Then she crossed to Julian, knelt before him, and pressed her forehead to his scarred hand. "This human did not break my oath," she said, lifting silver eyes bright with the truth she no longer feared. "He showed me it was beneath me, and in that breathless silence the Empire did not see a princess conquered by feeling. They saw a future queen transformed by the example of a human heart. While above them, the restored shield burned over Sarath like a second dawn, bright, defiant, and gloriously human.